Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Good evening if it's late for you as well. Thank you very much for joining us today for today's webinar series where we want to focus on pre-departure briefing and bit of arrival information. I believe for almost all of you, you've been through our processes right from application to offer, and you are now in your final stages of joining us next month. So this session is looking briefly at the steps that you need to take from now towards your arrival with us for your studies next month. So I'll go ahead and share the slides that we have for today. I believe you can all hear me. We'll go through them as much as we can, and in the end, as we have been doing, I would give time for you to ask your questions, and I'll be able to answer them. So bear with me as I put up the presentation. Okay, let me stop it. Hoping you can see the slides now. So yeah, pre-departure briefing and immigration information for Ross. Now, we will start with the details of what you need for your journey. The slides are moving. I'm on the second one. If you can see, let me know. If for any reason you cannot see, you can unmute yourself and let me know. So where I am is on visa and immigration essentials. Now, what we want to pick here, for some of you, you've already secured your visas and just planning on your travel. For others, you have secured your CASAs, applied for your visa whilst waiting for UKVI decision. And also for just a few of you among us, you have or you are waiting for your CAS letter to be issued. But this is general information that applies to all three categories, whichever one that you belong to. So as you make preparation for your journey, please make sure you have this sort of documentation with you. And by documentation, we mean the original copies. So for instance, your traveling passport with which you use to secure your admission and your visa, you need to, of course, travel with them, because definitely you cannot make this journey without your passport. But in addition to the passport, make sure you also have a copy of your visa decision. So as you submitted your visa application, once UKVI reverted back to you and informed that your visa is successful, you have to come with a copy of your visa decision. If it is in your email, you can get the soft copy available, or just to also avoid maybe areas where you get to airport and there are no internet connections or you are not able to access your email, you could also print a hard copy of the visa decision with you so that you can make that available whenever you are being required to do so. So your passport and your visa decision letter or information need to be ready with you for this journey. Also, your CAS letter that you received from Liverpool Hope University has to be with you, because that is the basis of the documentation on which you attained your visa. So that letter has to be with you because it does predominantly contain everything that needs to be known about you, from your course, from the university, from your fees, from how much you've paid, whether you used an agent, and what qualifications you use for your course. All of those details are in your CAS letter. So please, you all received a copy of your car's in mail upon which you used it to apply for your visa. So get a copy of that and also come along with it. Again, you need your academic certificate and transcript. These are the original copies that you used to secure your offer. So get your certificate, get your transcript. It may be or they may be checked at the borders, but then additionally, when you arrive in the UK and you come for your registration or enrollment, student immigration would also want to see copies of those original qualifications. So take note that when you applied for your admission offer, you use the scanned copies or the soft copies. Once you arrive for your registration or enrollment, they want to see the original copies and not just the scanned copies that you emailed or uploaded. So please make sure you have the original copies with you for your journey. It could also again be checked by the border agency. You also need evidence of your English proficiency. So depending on what is confirmed on your CAS letter, if it is IELTS, if it is PTE, if it is ELLT, if it is WIAC, whatever it is that is stated on your CAS, that is the means with which your English proficiency was confirmed, you need evidence of that with you. Again, the original certificate. Proof of accommodation. So we would hope that at the stage of traveling, you may have made arrangements for accommodation, because usually UKVI or the Border Patrol does not expect you to arrive in the UK and don't know where you are going or where you're going to stay. And so whatever arrangements you have made concerning your accommodation, you need to have some form of evidence available to show proof once you are asked. So for instance, if you have booked university accommodation, you will have evidence of a contract or maybe emails confirming booking with the accommodation details, including address, moving date, and all that. So if you have that sort of evidence, make that available. If you're looking at private accommodation, you may have again had engagement with either an estate agent or a private landlord who may also have sent some sort of confirmation regarding your booking. So have some form of evidence that confirm where you are going to live once you arrive in the UK. Not having anything at all raises red flags. And so please make sure you have some proof or evidence that once you arrive in the UK, this is the address that I'll be heading to as my accommodation. Even if it is a temporary one, it doesn't matter. You just have to get a proof that you know where you are going to once you arrive at the airport. Then finally, your financial evidence. So whatever bank statement or sponsorship letters or evidence of funding that you are using for your studies, once you arrive here, you should also have that with you. What I added here is that you could be asked questions about your studies by the UK border agencies. Now, that is something that is happening of late. It's happened before in the past, but especially for January 2026, we saw quite a lot of people being asked questions, both in their country of travel and also at the border post in the UK. Now, note that the fact that you have been issued a visa does not guarantee that you'll be granted entry into the UK. So you could have gone through the whole process, secured your visa, bought your ticket, traveled on the flight, arrived in the UK, and you could still be turned away if you are not able to provide credible answers to questions that the Border Patrol officers may ask. And that is why you need these documents with you, and you need to be able to provide sufficient information and answers to questions that you may be asked. So please prepare yourself that until you leave the border post, you've not yet arrived, even if your visa is granted. And you could be turned away and put on the next flight back to your home country if there is sufficient evidence by the border agency to think that you are not a genuine student, or you couldn't give credible responses, or you did not have enough documentation, or the documentation that you have was not sufficient to provide the answers that they need. So kindly take note of these and prepare yourself accordingly. Now, in terms of travel and arrival information, take note that you can only travel a month to the start of your course, even if your visa is issued early. And so I know, for instance, for those of you on the PGCE program, your course is starting early September. And so anytime from now, if you are traveling and you are arriving, you will be allowed entry into the UK. For the rest of you, I think majority of the others, your course is starting on the 14th of September. So what that means is that if you decide to travel today and arrive tomorrow, you might not be allowed entry into the UK, because you can only be allowed from the 14th of August onwards. So take note that because visa applications, you can apply for a visa 6 months to the start of your course. So anytime within 6 months prior to course start, so long as you have a valid CAS and all your other documentation is ready, you can apply and get a visa. But you cannot travel until a month to your course start. So you just have to make your journey within that month period. Now, most students fly into Manchester Airport. You could also fly into London Heathrow or Birmingham Airport. The closest to Liverpool is the Manchester Airport, where we get quite a lot of students flying in. However, these other destinations are also available depending on what flight you get or when or where you might want to travel from. But if you are thinking of the closest, then Manchester is the closest. There is an airport in Liverpool, but it's not an international airport where you do get direct flight from quite a lot of the destinations that many of you are coming from. If, for instance, there are some of our North American students who fly in from the States or Canada into Dublin. So if you happen to fly into Dublin, then you can usually get an air or a flight from Dublin into Liverpool. But other than that, if you are from any or flying from other destinations, many of them would either come to Manchester, London, or Birmingham. Now, from these airports, you can travel by train to Liverpool Lime Street Station. And Liverpool Lime Street is the main train station in the city of Liverpool. Depending on where your accommodation is, you could travel to other stations. So, for instance, there are other smaller train stations closer to, like, based on your address. So if you know the address and you check on Google Maps or any of these travel, like Trainline or any of those travel apps, and it gives you another station which will be closer to your address, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is wrong. But if you are not too sure or you don't know, then the best thing is to travel into the main station, which is the Liverpool Lime Street Station, from where you can easily get buses or trains, or taxis to any accommodation or any address within the city of Liverpool. Now, from Manchester Airport, you could also travel by taxi, but that is usually expensive. And so the journey from Manchester Airport to Liverpool is about 30 miles, 24 to 30 miles. Taxi will cost you about 80 to 90 pounds. And so if you don't mind spending that in case you fly into Manchester and want to take the taxi straight from the airport through to Liverpool, then that's also an available option. The journey will take you up to about 1 hour, or 50 minutes to 1 hour, and the cost will be about 80 to 90 pounds roughly. But if that is a bit expensive for you, then you can get a train from Manchester Airport, likely to go through Piccadilly, which is the main central train station in Manchester, but then continue or change there to get the train going to Liverpool, which will be relatively cheaper compared to getting the direct taxi from the airport. You need to have your accommodation address at hand for the taxi or to book it on the app. So, I mean, once you go and do the booking, they want to know so they can charge you or confirm and know where you're going. And if you arrive earlier than your tenancy start date, you may have to lodge into a hotel or an Airbnb. So, of course, you know where, like I mentioned earlier, that you should have an accommodation where you are going into. And whatever accommodation that you have booked, they would always give you your tenancy start date. So if your accommodation is starting on the 1st of September and you arrive on the 14th of August, you cannot move in. The fact that you have arrived doesn't mean that they will let you move in. Even if usually the room or the house is empty, most of the times for student accommodation or general accommodation in the UK, what happens is if one tenant or someone moves out, the landlord or agency or whoever is in charge will need some time to kind of deep clean the facility or do some few maintenances here and there before another tenant moves in. And that is why you are given a moving date of which keys will be made available to you. So don't assume that the fact that you have arrived in the UK, you can just be allowed into the house or the room. So if you do arrive early, then you need to make alternative arrangements until the start date that was agreed happens, where you can then move in formally to your accommodation, including the university accommodation as well. There will be a start date for you to move in. Now, when it comes to money, banking, and cost of living, we've had some information here for you. So once you have come, so we're looking in this case, you've traveled, you've arrived at the UK, you've checked in into your accommodation, you are all settled and ready. From the 14th of September, which is the date that we have given to start with registration and enrollment, you've come in and you've registered officially as a student of Liverpool Hope University. So once you have completed that, you will be issued with your student ID card. And this is what you would use for access into various buildings on campus and quite a lot of other things that you do on campus. So with that ID, you can then use it to open your UK bank account. Now, there are a number of digital banks that are currently operating in the UK, which you can use any of them. So they include Monzo, Revolut, and Starling. There are quite others around that you could also check online, and any that applies that you want to use, you can use. Alternatively, there are also the traditional banks which operate in high street across the UK that you can also use. They also have online options that you can use, but these are sort of the known high street banks that operate or that have operated in the UK for many years. So some include Barclays, HSBC, Lloyds, NatWest, Santander, quite a number of these sort of banks. So any of them that you would want to bank with, you can speak to them, whichever that appeals to you or that their terms and details are okay for you. You can open your bank account with them. The university will not, or we don't have any preference that sign up with bank A or B. It's all your decision. And many of them open up student accounts standard student account. For international students, they will just ask for your confirmation of student ID, evidence of registration, your address where you live, and then they would easily be able to open the account for you. All accounts will come with a debit card, which you can use for transactions. So once you open, you get your standard debit card posted to your address. You would also have the PIN number posted to your address separately. And then with the PIN and the card, you can use them for any transactions. The UK economy is a lot more cashless. So most of the times you use your card, or as I added here, you can set up your Apple Pay or Google Wallet. So if you have some cash with you and you want to use, that's fine. If you want to withdraw cash from your account and use, again, that's fine. But quite a lot of vendors and many services would actually end up either taking your card details or asking you to tap or swipe your card or your Google Pay or Google Wallet or Apple Pay, sorry. So you can use them for those sort of transactions. So you don't necessarily need to carry cash around or even withdraw cash or travel with cash with you. So long as you can get them into the account and you have the online account or you have the card with you, you can use it for almost every transaction that you need to know or do. Tuition and accommodation fees can be paid through your UK account or using the card. So even if you still, or for many of you, you may have outstanding or remaining fees and accommodation to pay. Again, you don't need to carry cash from your country to come and make that payment. Get it into your account and you can do either bank transfers or use your card or online details to make the payment once you are here at the university. In terms of expenses breakdown, so these are the typical cost per month for a standard student. Caveat here is that you could be spending more or maybe less, depending on your preference and your location and how you spend. But the usual student will spend within this sort of range, just to give you a guide as you prepare to come. So your rent or accommodation, depending on where you're living, whether you're living in a shared house or a shared university accommodation or en suite accommodation, your rent is usually between 400 to about 700 pounds a month. Again, it can be more. For instance, if you go for, let's say, 1-bedroom studio or apartment in the city center, it could cost more, depending on where it is and the facilities that are available. But on the average, these are the cost range that you would be expected to pay, just to give you a guide as you prepare. So your rent, you're looking at about 400 to 700 pounds. Food and groceries, so again, depending on your choices and lifestyle, I'll come to give details. But if you cook more, you might just end up spending less to just get the groceries or ingredients and do the cooking, either at your private accommodation or even in the university accommodation. You could even cook and keep in the fridge and bring some to the university to then do it at lunchtime. So all that affects your budget. But if you are someone who eats out a lot, then you would spend more. So again, I'll come back and touch on it. Transport, typically 30 to 50 pounds. We kept it a bit on the low side because, for instance, if you are on the university accommodation, you get a university shuttle bus, which you use for free during term time. So this transport is looking at extra or additional sort of bus pass or Uber ticket or Uber bookings or taxi booking that you may do to just go about with your things or just meet friends here and there. So it's kind of, if you're using the university transport shuttle, then coming to uni, going back home, you're not paying anything. So these are extra, unless you're not using that or you miss the bus or you're going for extra places that the bus doesn't cover, then you may have to budget extra to take care of your travel expense. Utility bills, again, if you are on campus accommodation, and even with some private accommodation, most of the time the bills are included in your rent. So if let's say they say, okay, £600 a month, and they say, or your contract says bills inclusive, so that means that your water, gas, electricity, and then Wi-Fi or internet are all included in that sort of cost. But then if it's not included, then you need to budget additional ones like we've given for that. Social life, you're looking at entertainment generally. So you want to go out to the stadium, maybe to Anfield, or to watch Everton FC or Liverpool FC, or you want to go to the pub, or you want to go to the cinemas. So other sort of areas that you go to where you kind of just spending on extra sort of activities that you're doing outside uni, then you can budget these things. Study materials, mostly you get them included. So library has a lot of resources, both hard copies and soft copies of all the materials that you need are available. And so you don't really need a lot to spend on your study materials. Even if you need to print, most of the times you can buy credit on your student ID and then just use that to print, which is not too expensive. So just put in some few extra budgeted amount to cater for that. So in all, between let's say roughly 650, 700 to just about 1,005, depending on your preference every month, this should be enough to cater for your expense for a typical student living with us and studying with us in Liverpool. As I shared earlier, maybe some bit of update on what affects your spending or what affects your budget. So the type of accommodation and the location. So that affects the cost. So shared houses or flat further from the city center tend to be cheaper. Halls or studios very close to the city center in this case becomes quite expensive. For many of you, if you're living with us or in our accommodation at Egbert Park or even at Hope Park, those are not expensive at all. So just standard £400 to £500 a month, you will get university accommodation that is inclusive of your bills. However, if you decide to live outside in a private accommodation in the city center in Liverpool, some of them could be quite expensive. So know your budget and then be able to know which sort of locations or facilities meet your budget. But I mean, work out and see which one also is best for you in terms of your traveling and commuting to and from the university, because that will be mostly where you spend much of your time. So you want to also get something that is closer so you don't need to spend a lot every day or go through a lot of inconvenience every day just to get to uni. Second is your eating habits, as I said, cooking at home or shopping at discount supermarkets and cooking at the university hall. Keep costs low, whereas eating out would push your cost high. So we're not saying never buy from the restaurant or don't eat out anytime, but it's up to you and how much you have to spend. If you know you're budget conscious, then there are a lot of shops that you can get discount for or as a student on quite a lot of things. So you can decide to buy from there, or even there are some restaurants that also give discount if you go there to dine. So keep an eye on those sort of facilities. Sometimes you get people or you get like Pizza Hut and other companies coming to campus to sell pizzas and other groceries at discounted rate. So again, those are sort of things that you can look at for if you want to save up on those sort of costs. Lifestyle and socializing. So if you go out more often, if you go out to the cinemas and other places quite a lot, Then, of course, if you are traveling a lot around the UK or around the city for sightseeing or for other things, that would cost you also more. If you want to manage on those ones so you don't do them very, very often, then at least that could also help you to keep an eye on your costs. And finally, utilities and bills. So like I said, if these are included in your rent, then the budgeting is easier because once you pay your rent for the month, maybe 500, 600, 700, all of them are catered for. And it doesn't matter the usage. Once you've paid, you've paid. But if they are not included, they come as additional cost, and that will be depending on usage. So if you use more, you pay more. So every month you'll be billed or you receive a bill for these sort of additional costs. For instance, if you're buying like maybe like data or you're buying your phone package, it could come. There are some sort of packages that come with unlimited use. So let's say 20 quid a month, and that gives you free calls, free data, like unlimited. Those ones you can use. If you are using the ones that have limits on them, then if you use up all the package, then you need to buy extra within the month. So these are things that you want to keep an eye on in terms of how you spend. Academic expectations, once you arrive, what do we expect from you? So there's a lot of independent study, especially so once you are on the bachelor's or the master's programs or even PhDs, you do a lot of independent studies. So students are expected to manage their own learning, complete their own readings, and study beyond lectures. So it might not be the same as you may be used to in your home country. You go for your lectures, all right. You go for tutorials, all right. But beyond that, there's a lot of independent private study, and you need to structure your time and your sessions such that the fact that you are not attending class doesn't mean it is a free day or a free time. So usually, if you are not on PGCE or social work, where there's a lot of classes and placement, and so almost every day you have a class or placement throughout the week. For most of the other courses, you attend uni or classes for about 2 or 3 days. The other days is just up to you to structure yourself to make sure you get time for your reading, you get time for your research and your assignment. So make sure you utilize those times when you are not in class. Critical thinking is also another thing. UK University's value analysis, evaluation, and forming your own supported argument. So it's not kind of just read what you are given and just come and do an exams and just reproduce that new information and pass. It's very different. There are some courses you will not even do one exam. Everything will be assessment or essays or assignments. So you spend almost all your time having to do research to reproduce essays and assignments, which will be marked. And so at the end of the day, a lot of critical thinking and independent work is involved. There's also the expectation of active participation. So like I said, apart from classroom work, you also have seminars and tutorials, which are in smaller groups. So already Hope is a very, very small institution in terms of student numbers. So you have small class sizes, but in the seminars and tutorials, you are even broken down into much smaller groups. So maybe just a group of 3 or 4 or 5 of you. And so once you go into those sessions, it requires a lot of discussions, asking questions, engaging with your mate. So you're not just going to sit there and just listen because it needs everyone's contribution. So whatever sort of assignment or tasks that you have been given, you would all work with it together. And you don't need to be the most proficient person, but you have to engage and make sure that you have the adequate level of English that will make you or help you to participate in this sort of engagement. There's also academic integrity. You need to do your referencing properly. Plagiarism and citation poorly done are kind of very serious issues. So please These are essentials, and you will get sessions and classes and tutorial that would touch on these things. So this session or this point here is just to give you the awareness. Once you come, you have academic session that would teach you on proper referencing, how to avoid plagiarism, do your citations properly and all that. But just for you to note that it is something that you need to be aware of. There's also strong academic writing, clear formal writing using academic sources is expected in essays, reports, and assessment. So take note of these. In terms of student support available, because again, we're looking at this when you have arrived. So well-being services are just available. So during the orientation week, you will be told of what sort of all the well-being services we have, who is in charge, and where you can access them, both on campus and virtually as well. So take note of them once you're going through the orientation and registration time. Disability and learning support is also available in case you need them. If you're stressed, if you have mental health issues, the learning support team are there to help. So again, get to see where they are and then how you can access their support. If there are peculiar international student support that you need, the Global Center is open and available to help you. So maybe issues of your visa, you are homesick, you need cultural activities that kind of reconnect you back home. You need to maybe connect with students or people from your region just for some sort of help. You need to find shops that maybe sell foods, Asian meals, American foods, Caribbean, African. Go to the Global Center. They might be able to give you some sort of pointers to international related sort of help that you would need. Careers services are also available in terms of how you would find part-time work in the UK or in Liverpool, how you prepare your CV, how you plan for your interviews. They also give those sort of support, and then also health services and how you register with a GP. A GP is general practitioner, and that is what maybe most of you will refer to as your doctor or your clinic. And so in the UK, once you arrive, you know that as part of your visa application, you paid for your immigration health surcharge. So what that means is that you can access healthcare once you are in the UK as a student. So during the orientation and induction sessions, the Global Center team will help you to know the nearest GP or general practitioner or doctor closest to your address. So in the UK, generally, you register with the one that is more closer to your address. So then if you need help, you just go there as your first point of contact. So they would help you with the locations closer and you register. And then if you have any health need, you just have to call, book an appointment, or do the emergency walk-ins, and then the doctors will be able to attend to you. Cultural adjustment and life in the UK, of course. British customs, communication style, and etiquette might be different from what it is in your country. So you need to be able to learn and adapt. You don't need to change who you are, to be honest. You are who you are. Speak English, and so you'll be fine once you come in. But there are a few customs here and there that you might find useful to learn as you come here. So, for instance, many a times when people use the bus, for instance, I've seen and I heard this that in some countries, once you stand at the bus stop, once the bus is coming and see that there is a person at the stop, it will stop for you to board if you want to. In the UK, it's different because quite a number of different buses use the same bus stops. So for instance, you get to the bus stop and you see different bus numbers on the table or on the board at the bus stop. And so once the bus gets there, and if that is the bus you want to use, And if you don't stretch out your hand to stop the bus, it will just come and pass and go. The fact that you are standing there doesn't mean the bus should stop. If no one stretches their arm to stop the bus, it will just pass and go because the driver assumes that no one is taking that bus, even though maybe they are there waiting for another bus. So that could be different from the experience in your country, for instance. So that is something that you need to be aware of. Once you use the bus, many a times when people are getting off the bus, please and thank you is used quite often. You thank the driver, even though you've paid for your bus fare. So it's just those little things that happens that you might want to learn as you are here. Just kind of be kind and then be moderate, be respectful in your communication and in the things that you do here. Weather and appropriate clothing. So of course, UK is it could be cold. Now at the moment, it's very warm and hot. So it's summer and it's hotter than usual most times. And so if you are coming from a country which is kind of quite warm and hot in most of the time, if you arrive at the moment, you'll be okay. But if it gets into the winter season, it could also get very cold. So you need to make sure you have appropriate clothing to take care of it. Public transport and travel cards. So you would need your bus passes or your rail cards for train. If you're using the university bus from accommodation to campus, you don't need to buy any pass. Usually they check your student ID, and so you just have to make sure that available. Food, shopping, and where to buy essentials is also important. There are some sort of, like I mentioned earlier, shops and restaurants that cater for different sort of country cuisines. And even on campus, for instance, the main restaurant do serve other dishes outside British meals. And so that is something that you can look in and then buy from. But if you're not finding any, you can speak to the Global Center or just speak to your friends and they might be able to tell you where they found other shops that you can also use. Stay safe. Staying in the UK is generally safe. Police, cameras, protection and security are available in many places on campus, off campus, but then it doesn't also take away the aspect of your personal safety. So, of course, as it is in any country, there are places and there are areas that you need to be careful depending on what time and which places you go in. And there are also a lot of scams that also through emails and other areas, as you could know. So it's generally safe, but you have to make sure that whatever you get or you're told or wherever you're going, you are also taking your personal safety at hand just to avoid getting into any sort of harm with it. In terms of community and social integration, there are a lot of student union and societies on campus which you can join based on your subject, based on your location, based on your preference, whatever you like. Most of the times, there are societies that cater for them. If there's none and you want to create one and you have a group of people who are interested, just come together, register with the student union, and then you can start your own activities. There's orientation and welcome week, which starts from the 14th of September for many of you, so please take advantage of it. There are also a lot of volunteering and campus involvement in terms of activities with the international team, with the recruitment team, with any of the other teams on campus. So please take note if you want to volunteer and support activities on campus, and generally making friends and other networks. So your classmates, country mates, people around. Hope, like I said, is not very massive. So you realize that over time, you get to know everybody and everyone gets to know you. So make friends as much as you can so you can get the help and support that you need. Key contacts on arrival. So maybe you get to the UK, you want to know, maybe something happens, you want to ring quickly to get support. So international team, our phone number is here. Accommodation team, their number is here in case you book any of the accommodation on campus and you want to reach them. Security posts. So there's 24-hour security on our 3 campuses. So the Hope Park campus, this is the number to call. The Creative campus at the city center, this is the number to call. And the Egbert Park, this is the phone number to call in case you want to ring security. And this is the main university line, which you can ring if you are not sure of who to speak to. And then based on what you ask, they can redirect your call to the appropriate person or team to support you. So that's it for this session today. Thank you very much. I will stop share at this moment and then take your questions, if any. My colleague Amanda is also here with me. And so if there are any that she might also want to add on, she would be able to come in as we go along. So thanks once again. As we do, if you have any questions, you raise up your hand and then I will call in turns and answer your questions. Thank you. Any questions? Okay, I can't. Okay. Cool. So, David, let's start with you.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Yes.
Well done, sir. Sorry, I just want to make an inquiry. My application has been with the UKVI for a while now. I did my biometrics in June, and 4 weeks after, I was told that I needed to do an interview, a credibility interview for student visa, which I did in July. And
Yeah.
it's been 4 weeks now, and I haven't gotten any response yet. So I'm asking what's the best way out if I can do a paid inquiry or a paid email to the UKVI to get a feedback.
Okay, good one. Yes, you can. I mean, you can either email them through the addresses that they've been communicating to you to get the update, or I know they have a paid line that sometimes people you can be charged and you can call to make a follow-up inquiry on your application. Um, I've also, it's not just you, I think you are the second person I've got to know that there's a bit of delay on their visa decision time. They said the standard is 3 weeks, but then, of course, if they have other things that they want to check, then that could go beyond the 3 weeks time. So I would say if you are okay to do the paid sort of follow-up, then you can do that. If not, then use the email correspondent and see. Ideally, they would know or they know your course start date, so they will likely get back to you before your course starts.
Okay.
Does that help, David?
Okay, but you recommend I do the paid inquiry?
Yeah, if you want to do that. But I mean, that's not a guarantee that they will definitely give you an answer. You can do that, and you could also, they will just say, okay, we're still waiting for a decision. And I mean, that is you've paid all right, but you still don't get the answer that you want. So it will be better to start with the email where you have not at least paid anything. And if that is still not yielding the results, then you might want to go the payment route.
Okay, okay. I have someone who wants to help me with the paid, so I think I'll just go ahead with that.
Okay, that's fine, no problem at all. For us as a university, most of the time we are not permitted to inquire on your behalf unless the visa has maybe still pending even after your course has started. Then we can maybe inquire privately to know, because we want to then make a decision on whether we can still have time for you to join or not. But until they get to that point, we're not allowed to intervene. So you will have to do that on your own at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I'm very grateful. Thank you, sir.
No worries. You're welcome, David. Any other questions from anyone else? Any more questions? Okay. Once we are fine and there are no more questions, maybe Amanda, from the presentation and the information, anything that you might want to add or anything you have thought of adding before we bring this session to a close? I would also check on the chat if there are any questions.
So far, there's nothing to add from my side.
Okay, cool. That is fine. All right. If that's the case, then thank you everyone for your time today. There were requests by someone to see if the recording can be saved and shared. So from here, once we get that copy ready, we will send that across to you. If you want to play back or if any questions come along as you listen again, you can feel free to email us and we'll be happy to answer your questions. So we'll share the recording and the slides with you once we are done with this session. So thank you once again for your time. Next week, we're hoping to do a session where we will look or concentrate on attendance because that is a big part of your sort of requirement or expectations on the student visa that you'll be issued once you come to join us. And so the compliance team have put together some notes for us to share with you regarding your attendance and what the expectation is. So we would look into look out for your emails. We'll send the invite across, hopefully, and then we can meet next week to touch base with that. Other than that, wish you all the best. Hopefully, we'll see you next week, or if you don't need that session, then we look forward to welcoming you into the university in September. Festus, I can see you've just raised your hand. You're wrapping up, but I mean, I'm happy to give you the chance.
Hello, Paul. Thank you so much.
Mm.
I had a few questions, a few inquiries about this application. I don't know if this is the right time to inquire from you.
The session may have answered them. So, I mean, you can still ask if they were answered. I might answer them briefly, but I mentioned that we will share the presentation and the slide. So for if they are sort of already there, then you can play back if you missed any of them and be able to like catch up. But yeah, go ahead and ask.
Okay, I've begun my visa application a few hours ago. Then I was asked for a biometric residence number, biometric residence permit number.
Okay, so you said you did your application a few hours ago.
I was trying to do, because I just received my confirmation of acceptance for studies this morning. So I was trying to do my visa application after I received the task. But now, before when I was jumping in, I was just asked the first question as biometric residence permit number, but I don't have that number, and I was wondering where to get that.
So it will depend on the location that you chose to apply your visa from. The residence permit number, you provide that if you are based in the UK or applying from the UK. If you are applying from outside the UK, then you don't need that number. And so check on the location that you chose. I think first also ask the question is gone. So let me see if you'll be back. Otherwise, we would then wrap up. Okay, that's fine. Festus is not back, so we will leave it for him to contact us, and then we would answer directly to him. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, and bye-bye.